Welcome to Parent Coaches Unleashed with Carrie and Jessica, where no topics are taboo or off limits. Join us as we let loose and discuss the real, raw feelings about parenting.
In each episode, we will bring you heartfelt discussions, real-life stories, and special guests that will both entertain you and encourage community so no one feels alone in their parenting journey.
Thanks so much for listening. Now let's start the show.
Hi, everybody. Today I'm here with Carrie and a very special guest, Lauren Muriello. I'm going to let Carrie introduce her and tell us a little bit about her.
Hi, Lauren. Welcome. We are so excited to have you with us today. Lauren is a licensed psychotherapist and the founder of Wellbeing Therapy Center with locations in northern New Jersey. Lauren's specialty has always been children and teen issues, including parenting and family dynamics, modern trends in youth mental health, and the impact of tech and social media on the developing mind. So, welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Lauren, tell us a little bit about your practice, Wellbeing Therapy, and I'm really curious to how you got into your specific niche in dealing with teens.
Great. Yeah. So Wellbeing Therapy Center is my therapy center in northern New Jersey, and I have an amazing team of 10 therapists. We specialize in children and teen issues. While I was in private practice for so many years, just, working with teens and seeing the increasing rates of anxiety and depression, self-harm, specifically amongst teens and teen girls, I started following the research early on about the way that tech and social media were impacting teenagers and the ways that psychologists were speculating, that it could be impacting teenagers. And so I've been really dedicated about it. And obviously, bringing us to this moment, we have some really good data now and reasons to be really concerned. And so I have I've really made it my mission to educate parents about the impact of screen culture and social media on youth mental health.
I'm sure you also find that because social media and the use of phones is so different to our next generation growing up with all of this technology at their fingertips, I imagine, like you said, more anxiety, more stress. There's a whole new slew of mental health issues that are rising for our teens. And are you seeing it younger and younger?
Yeah. And so, what the research is really showing, and Jonathan Haidt's new book, The Anxious Generation, him and his colleagues do a really great job of highlighting the most current research, and they put together, their conclusions from looking at the data. We see that this current teen generation is really struggling. It is definitely a mental health crisis. We know that there was a CDC report a couple months ago, interviewing and surveying teenagers. 57% of teenagers currently report feelings of hopelessness or persistent sadness. Over half.
Yeah,
And then for teen girls, the stats are really scary. Over 30% of teen girls say that they've thought at some point of ending their lives. It's just, it's startling. It's startling.
It's so scary as a parent too, right? It's just, not from a therapist standpoint, from doctors, pediatricians, but like from the parents, like, right? They probably don't know.
Right.
And it's
Right.
new to us as parents also, because this is not something we dealt with growing up.
Exactly. And the technology moves so quickly. It is so hard for parents to keep up. It is definitely impossible for laws and school guidelines to keep up. So it starts with us as parents in our homes to be educated and then to make the decisions that we want to protect and guide our kids.
Right. So what would you want parents to know about technology and their child's brain, and what is that doing, and what are some things that parents can do in their own homes to guide and set some boundaries?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I want to just say technology is here to stay and it's actually incredible. And when I talk to parents and, teenagers, when I do presentations at schools, I tell them this is not a tech bashing session. I love technology. It's about learning to control technology so that it doesn't control us. Because here's the thing that's really important for parents to remember, that these platforms, whether it's video games, web streaming platforms, social media platforms, they were not designed with children and teen in mind. They were
Mm,
not designed by child and adolescent
right.
psychologists to enhance the well-being of our kids or even of our lives. They were really just designed to do a really good job of recommending the next video or keeping you watching, right? And so I just want parents to remember that. We have to think about what ways we want our kids to use technology to enhance their lives. Because the technology is designed to be as engaging and as addicting as possible, and it is. And so their little brains are going to keep going back and back and back unless we intervene.
So, do you have I know you're saying not all technology is bad, and I agree with you that it's almost like a double-edged sword. I mean, there's so many good things that we can use it for, but like everything in moderation. So, is there a time frame parents should be looking at to allow their children access to social media outlets or even a phone? Is there a recommendation you give for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if we think about younger kids, elementary age kids, absolutely no smartphones and access to handheld devices that connect them to the entire world. Not yet. Not yet. And so we want to think about giving them access to age appropriate content. So that means if they're on YouTube, it needs to be age appropriate. So you need to be talking to them about what they are permitted to watch and putting on the parental restrictions so that they don't mistakenly tumble across inappropriate, content. And then, I have a 10-year-old and I also have a high schooler, a 10th grader. But so for my 10-year-old, she knows that in our home, the rule is you can watch some of your shows or some of your screen time after everything else is done. So it's at the very end of the day. So, during a school week, maybe there's activities, maybe there's some homework. Ideally, there's playing and creativity and imagination. And then maybe right before dinner, there's like 30 minutes, maybe an hour of that leisure passive screen time, right? So that's my recommendations for the younger kids. And weekends, what I do in my home and I recommend to parents is no screens first thing in the morning. Really try to get them engaged in that creative play, and just being a part of the family, or even being bored is a good thing for their brain development, right? So save the screens for the end of the day. That means hide them, put on passwords. That means talk to them about what your rules and guidelines are around it. And so that's for the younger kids, so we can talk about teenagers as well.
Well, I'm very curious to hear what you tell the parent when their teen says, "But mom, this is how all my friends are communicating. I'm going to miss out if I'm not on these platforms." What do you
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really important. So for teenagers, now we're talking about, a different developmental stage. And we could break it into middle school and high school. Middle schoolers, I really don't want to see them on social media yet. And I know it's hard for parents because this generation, they all got on. And so if they're not on, they will feel
Yeah.
left out. So what I recommend for parents right now is let them on, but with limits. So 20 minutes on Instagram, 20 minutes on Snapchat. TikTok, I throw it out the window. I don't think they even need it. I really dislike the platform for reasons we could talk about, as well. But, you really want to encourage them to contact their friends on private messaging apps. But if all their friends are talking on Snapchat, okay, but you limit it. And then as they get older, so 15, 16, 17, now their brain is more capable of responsible use, of understanding how to deal with uncomfortable situations online. And so we can give them access to more social media accounts. But again, we want to educate them about critically thinking about the content that they watch and educating them that these platforms are designed to suck you in. They're designed to keep you on as long as possible. So let's be really smart about our time and our brain health and our mental health. So we're going to put time limits on, so for example, my 15-year-old son, we use the app limit settings on his phone. And he's got, 20 minutes on Instagram, 30 minutes on YouTube, 30 minutes on Snapchat, 30 minutes on Chrome. He sat down with us and we decided how we want to spread out that time.
Okay. But what happens when he goes to a friend's house who has full access, or he's at school and, there are teachers that are like, take out your phones and look this up or do that, So, what guidance do you have around that? And what does your conversation look like with your son, who he's going to other people's homes and they don't have the same sort of boundaries and limits or agreements that you guys put into place?
Yeah, I mean, all we could do, obviously, is set up our homes the way that we want
Right.
to guide our kids. And then we just have to teach them, why we have these limits and how to think critically and protect themselves in the world. And so then when they go out to friends' houses or they're out and about, yeah, they're going to get exposed to other
Okay.
things. Getting exposed to other things in all sorts of doses is a part of growing up, obviously. So we want to help them navigate those situations. But so, for example, when you talk to your kids about your reasons behind, your guidelines on protecting your mental health, I want to really be thoughtful about what you expose yourself to, what kind of content you're looking at. I don't want you to be addicted to scrolling and that be the only thing that you go to when you're feeling like you need to relax, right? So then they can recognize it. I mean, even my 10-year-old said to me, Mom, I'm concerned about my friend so and so because she told me that she went on TikTok. So she already has
The
that
awareness. Yeah.
awareness. Like there's something going on there that maybe is not so safe. My mom told me. So that's
That's
good.
cute.
I want my voice in her head.
That's really
It's
cute.
funny. When I was younger, for us, like the big thing was at that time R-rated movies. Like we were not allowed to watch
Mhm.
R-rated movies.
Yes.
And my brother, who was 3 years older than me, he had more access to certain shows that I did not, and I was not allowed to see the movie Porky's. Do you remember Porky's?
Yes.
Oh
And
Yes.
I
yeah, I couldn't see
remember
it.
going to my friend's house, and she was allowed to watch it, and I said, I know, let me just call my dad and see if I can watch this." And he's like, "No, the rule in our house is no, the rule in that house is no." But it's so funny because it's the same thing. It's replaced with something else. It's the same type of conversations. It's the same type. What are your values and how are you instilling them and setting your boundaries to protect those values?
Yeah.
Exactly. And there are so many influencers now that have access to our kids and teens. So that's why it's really important that we limit their time so that we can still be a primary influencer in our kids' lives. It's harder and harder. And why I want parents to delay giving a phone device, a smartphone device for through middle school, because once it's that small and that easy just to put in their pocket, it's really easy. Just, well, I know my parents don't want me to, but I can right here in the privacy and safety of my own room. And so, there are smartphone alternatives that we can give to kids when they're, if they're in fifth grade or middle school and they're walking home from school alone and you want to be able to contact them, or get in touch with them, we can use devices with them for communication. But it doesn't mean we give them access to the entire internet, which is filled with adult content. And again, designed not for their mental health and their
Right.
well being.
So are
It's
you
interesting.
seeing that parents nowadays, because it was different, my kids are 21 and 24. So when they first got their phones, it was because, and they were cell phones, right? They did not have access to social media yet, but that's because wasn't readily available like it is. So are you seeing that when parents give their kids, and whatever age, elementary school, middle school, their first phone is like a full access to everything? It's just
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem. I don't think parents are aware that you can give them a communication device, some kind of phone, but not have all the apps on it and not give them access to social media. So I tell parents, start with texting, music, phone calls, maybe a couple of games, and that's it, right? They don't need to have a browser that gives them access to everything on the internet, and they definitely don't need to have social media.
One of the things that we had done when our kids first got the phone is that we all had the same Apple ID number. So everything had to be approved by us before they were able to purchase an app or log on to any kind of platform. And I'm curious, what do you tell parents about passwords? Because I've run into this controversy with other parents. I had always felt that if it's my phone that you're borrowing, so if I'm paying the bills, I have access to all of your passwords. But parents feel it's an invasion of privacy. So where do you fall on that, on passwords?
Yeah, I mean, Jessica, I'm on board with you. I feel very strongly that, their phone is not a diary. If they want to have a diary or a journal, then they absolutely should,
Oh,
and that is
I
private.
love that
Um,
comparison. That's a great one. I'm going to
yeah,
use that.
yeah, and you absolutely need the passwords. When we were young, our parents would stand near our door and just eavesdrop on our
Listen,
phone
yeah.
conversation, or pick up the
Or
phone really
quiet,
quietly
yes,
and listen.
quietly listen, like, uh-huh.
Right.
Yep.
Because that's a parent's job, is to just take a peek every now and then and make sure things look okay. Or if you suspect that something might not be okay with your kid, then to take a bigger look. And so we absolutely need access to the phones. We should know the passcodes on their phones, and we should set the passcode on the parental control screen limit, right?
Right,
So
so they
I know the password from my son's screen time limits. He doesn't know it, and he has to sometimes give it to me to make changes, and I, hide it and put in the passcode so he doesn't see it, because that's the key. And so parents absolutely should be, using those controls. You can set the time that phones and devices go off for the night. That's it.
Yeah,
For your young ones, it's done at 7:30 or 8. For teenagers, 9:30, 10, whatever is appropriate in your home. And it just goes off. There's no question. You can't open it up anymore. I always leave, for safety measures, I leave access to the phone or to FaceTime. So you can contact, someone or a parent if you need to. But there's no more social media. There's no more gaming. There's no more access to the internet after a certain time.
you say safety. I'm wondering how many parents use that excuse to give their kid the phone. I need to be able to get in touch with you whenever I want. It's a way of being safe. And as Carrie and I know all too well, it's a false sense of
Mhm.
security, because even if you know where your kid is, that's not, what is that phone doing for you in that moment?
yep,
So what do you
Absolutely.
say about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is, a false sense of security. I think it also interferes with giving our kids the opportunity to cope and to, deal with whatever stressors are happening in their lives. I was talking to parents at a middle school last night about this. There's some parents felt very frustrated that other kids were receiving text messages from parents during the day or during at lunchtime. They were debating their phone policies. I'm a big proponent of phone-free schools, and this is one of the reasons. Kids should not be able to turn to their parents during the middle of the day and say, I'm a little uncomfortable, rescue me. Right? Those moments are critical for developing confidence and self-efficacy, that feeling like I can thrive in the world and meet challenges on my own. So that's really important that we give kids that freedom. In Jonathan Haidt's new book that I mentioned, The Anxious Generation, his theory is that the play-based childhood that we had and all the generations before us had has been replaced with a screen-based childhood. And so, in addition to us wanting to decrease the amount of time that our kids are on screens, we also need to look at the other side, which is, what have they not been doing? They have not been exploring and going on independent adventures and really getting out in the world, having safe risks, healthy risks. That is really fun and exciting for kids and teens. And so we need to replace, this exciting, fun, short form videos that, give us these dopamine rushes with adventures in the real world that can give us the healthy dopamine rushes.
but what would you say to parents, though, that, like, are scared, right? Are scared to send their kids out without a device, without a tracking mechanism, to just go play, right? Go to the park and play. And that might mean ride your bike to the next neighborhood over, or walk by yourself, to the closest local park, or, patch of grass to go play if you're living in a city or wherever, right? Because I feel like, again, we, like Jessica said, there's this false sense of security we have because our kids have phones, and we could get to them whenever we wanted, or so we think. But like, what about the parents who know this? Like, they know, yep, I know my kid's really supposed to be outside playing, but I'm just scared to let them go because our world, is not as safe as maybe when I myself, would go to the park when I was, 12 years old, whatever it was. Like, is that part of the complication, or am I just sitting in a naive place?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, I would say I get it, and you're trying to be a great parent, so terrific. But we have to recognize that a lot of the times we've been overprotecting our kids in the real world. There's another great organization called letgrow.org. And their mission is to get parents feeling more comfortable letting their kids be independent. And they have a great program for schools where they give a homework assignment, do something you've never done before in your home. It can be, cook a meal, do this. And we're seeing that the rates of anxiety in these kids are decreasing because as they do more independent activities, they feel more competent and capable. And so the same is true for parents. We have to start small. So let them walk to the neighbor next door. Let them walk around the block and you can watch them as they're going. um, the more we let them do it, the more comfortable we feel doing it. And if you look at the statistics, we actually live in a really safe world. Most of our communities are really safe. And yes, there have been some horrible tragedies. And I know that the two of you have experienced it firsthand, but thankfully that's rare. And most of our communities are really safe. And if we deprive our kids of the opportunities to explore out in the world, they're going to suffer. They're going to suffer. Their mental health will suffer. Their sense of ability to, be independent and be out in the world will suffer. And I know that's not what parents want for their kids.
Right.
You know, I think all this talk about when to give devices and social media is great, but I think one of the key components we're missing here is a parent's modeling. If a child sees their parent on their phone all the time, that's what they're learning from. If your rule is no phones at the dinner table, then that's what you're modeling for the kids. My husband and I were out for dinner not too long ago, and we walked past a table of a family. The father was on his phone, the two kids were on their phone, and the mom was sitting there having a glass of wine by herself. I mean, it your kids are always watching, and I that's something we need to drive home too, is that your kids are doing what you're doing. And if they see
Yeah.
you on your phone, how can you then tell them, oh, well, you can't be on your phone as you have your phone in your hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We absolutely have to model it. And the same addictive, persuasive qualities that the devices have, and in the way that they impact our kids and teens, of course, impact us
Sure.
too. We notice it all the time. I pick my phone up to add something to my calendar, and 5 minutes later, I realize I'm reading
Yeah.
emails and texting and looking at things. And wait, what am I doing?
Right.
Because it's designed to do that, and it works. So we absolutely have to have guidelines for ourselves. Where you charge your phone at night, where you keep your phone. Definitely no phones at the dinner table. That's a really important, clear guideline for families. No devices at the dinner table, even if no one is talking. That is fine. It's really important to have that space where we don't have technology. We look each other in the eye, and hopefully, we are talking about things that are important to us. Things either
Sure.
silly, lighthearted things, or things that are coming up that we need to address as a family.
Dinner time
Yep.
is definitely one of those golden hours for conversation. I mean, I know this day and age, everybody's schedules are so crazy, but the scheduling that time for family dinners, just everyone together sitting around the table, to me, that's always been so important in our house.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, and not everyone can do it every
No,
day.
Correct. Right.
absolutely.
That's
That's why
okay.
when you can
Right.
get it, it's great.
Right.
And
Which it's
Exactly.
golden when you can get it, right? When it's
right,
scheduled. But
not yes, 100%.
we used to play the game when we would go out to dinner. We'd have to put our phones like in the center or somewhere all together. And the first person that grabbed their phone had to pay for dinner, right? Like that was just like, we're here. No one should have their phones. And if for some reason you just can't resist the urge, now you get to pay for everybody's dinner. So it was fun. We would do that when we would go
Perfect.
on vacation. but it was,
That's great.
yeah,
That's extra fun when you're with friends, when you're with your, adult friends
yeah,
or college age kids, do that. And, speaking of putting phones all together, I was talking to a parent last night who was really frustrated because her fifth grader had, five friends over and three of them came with phones. And the mom, they don't have phones for their kids yet. And the mom asked them to all put them in a little pile by the front door. And some of the kids were confused by
yeah,
that. They were all excited. They had just got this phone. And I really applauded her for, having that boundary in her house, and for talking to the kids, like, you're all together. You don't need to be on devices. That's the point. You're here. So stay focused on each other, have fun. We want them to be playing. We want them to be connecting. We do not want them to be sucked into the devices, especially when they're together.
yeah. I know, because I have been around kids where they are all like they're together and they're hanging out together, but each one of them has their head down in their phone. So they're not really connecting, right? They could just each be in their own home doing their own thing, right? They kind of forget, or they're taking pictures or recording, or, right? It's everyone's trying to do something to like avoid just being in the moment and, participating with the other friends, right? It's just this,
Yeah. I, we're
like,
really seeing a deficit for these kids, I hear parents and schools tell me all the time, a deficit in social skills, a deficit in conflict resolution skills, a deficit in creativity, attention fragmentation. So it's really hard for them to pay attention for long periods of time. So, we're seeing all these harms. And so we have to wake up. I think we need these new norms. We need new trends. We need enough parents to agree. I'm not going to get my kid a smartphone until they're in high school. I'm not going to let them on social media when they're in middle school. We're going to limit the amount of time they're on it at home so that we encourage them to go out into the world and explore.
Do you have something to say to the parents or a good piece of advice for that peer pressure, for not just for the kids, but the parents that are feeling it too? Is it just a matter of being strong and standing by your principles, or my kid's the only one in their class that doesn't have a phone? Like,
It's really hard when you're the only one. I mean, the most important thing is to try to find, one or two, or ideally more, other parents that get it. So bringing up this conversation, reaching out to some of your kids' friends' parents. Look, I'm concerned about what I'm hearing about social media and mental health. I really want to protect our kids. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we limit it. I'm thinking we keep them off social media. And you'll find parents. There are plenty of parents that are agree. I mean, we get it. It's very intuitive. You don't have to be a social
sure.
psychologist to have concerns about this. And so you find a couple of allies and you go from there, and you work together. And then you can say to your kid, you're not the only one. I
Mm,
spoke to,
right.
Janie and Johnny's mom, and they're doing the exact same thing. And I've had, those conversations with my kids, and it really helps. It really helps. And then hopefully you like those families, and then you spend more time together,
That- That's a great point. You talked earlier about a school. Your goal is to have no phones in school. Are you doing something to promote that, or do you speak at schools, or is there something? Tell us about that mission for you.
Yeah, I do speak at many schools in northern New Jersey and expanding in my reach, to educate parents and schools about it. I am a big proponent of phone-free schools. I've heard so many stories from school counselors, teachers, and students about how they interfere. I mean, they definitely distract from academics, but my concern, as a therapist and a mom, is the way that they impede social skills and emotional skill development and connections.
Sure.
They're having a hard time making friends. So, if about half the kids are doing okay, then great, they're able to manage it. But the other half of the kids are not. They're struggling with anxiety and depression, or worse, suicidal thoughts, and they're trying to make healthy connections and they can't because they don't have the best social skills to begin with, and so they retreat to the phone. Or the kid who they think maybe they connect with is staring at their phone. So that really frustrates me, and all the way through high school, I believe that we need to have phones free schools. So there are some great organizations that are working on these missions, and a new organization called Mothers Against Media Addiction. just emerged recently. And I was on a Zoom with the founder, talking about new chapters. And she was saying how she has a lot of experience in media, and she's a journalist. And so she wants to use her connections and her know-how to help a lot of these smaller organizations, get a voice. So that's a great organization to follow, joinmama.org, MAMA.org. And they're trying to do work to pass legislation and to get people really thinking about the policies at the government level and at the school level.
Have you seen legislation passed or begin to be developed to put in front of our lawmakers to battle this really this social media epidemic? I
Epidemic,
mean,
yeah.
Yeah, there's something in front of Congress called KOSA, the Kids Online Safety Act. So that's what's being worked on right now and seems to have the most chance of making some impact.
okay.
But there's really been nothing protecting families and kids. And on the contrary, the social media and tech companies have had a free pass where they're protected from being sued for the content that's on their site. So that's really an issue.
Sure.
And that's what some of these organizations are working on and need to work on, so that they have to be held accountable. Not to mention, they have the resources to implement changes to the way that their platforms work, especially for kids and teens. And they haven't done anything. And so that's what parents really have to push for and insist for. And the glamour and excitement and the draw of technology has really blinded us. It's just like, oh, it's fun, it's great, it's cool. They're doing dances, they're doing this.
Right.
We love technology. It is beautiful. But we need to wake up to the way it's impacting our kids' psychological development.
Can you talk? I don't know if you can, and if you can't, that's perfectly fine. But can you give our listeners some insight into how those algorithms work and how they affect our teens?
Oh, absolutely. And
Thank
we should
you.
all know about it. So and the algorithm, TikTok mastered it. And then, with their short form videos, and then YouTube added shorts and Instagram added reels, and they're all doing it now. The algorithm is the computer program that is designed to keep the user on as long as possible. So, if you watch puppy videos and it shows you more puppy videos and you keep watching, and, and,
Jessica's
and then
raising
it
her
speeds
hand.
up
Yeah.
kitten videos. Then you watch the kitten videos, and then it shows you horses, but you don't like it, so it goes back to puppies. And so if it's puppies and kittens that you're watching, then yay, it's making you smile and it's harmless. But here's what happens in particular to teen girls. They start off with this very innocent, beauty content. Like, I want to look up how to do mascara and eyeliner. And so they watch that. When we were young, you probably could maybe see an ad in a magazine, or maybe there was a 30-second commercial about it. They can consume hours and hours of content on how to apply makeup. But then what the algorithm does is, all right, we got beauty content here. Let me see if the diet content works too, because that's related. So now all of a sudden, they weren't even looking for it, and they're getting information about how to tighten your abs and how to have skinny thighs. And did you know that you actually don't have to eat as many calories as you think? And then they're watching. It's like, I didn't know that. And now they're getting eating disorder content. So now here's how to manage your hunger signals so that you can suppress them, so you don't have to eat as much. And that's why we have 30+% of teen girls that are struggling with eating disorders, suicidal thoughts, depression, because they've gone down this rabbit hole of this really harmful content. And it started pretty innocently. The algorithm does not care about our kids. It's just trying to get them to watch. And that's what's so horrifying about it. And you have to look this up. I'm forgetting her name right now. But a woman just launched a video called Fight the Algorithm. And she made this hilarious music video, and it was funded by, I think, a grant. And I just saw it yesterday, and I think it's great, because we want kids, parents too, of course, to understand what's happening. The reason why they're scrolling like this and loving it is because the algorithm is doing its job.
Right there, right what you just said is enough reason for parents to jump on and limit their children's
Yeah.
screen time. I mean, that's how we prevent them from going from those algorithms those algorithms developing further and causing even more harm.
Exactly. And Jessica, the other thing I tell parents is to sit down and look at your teen's feed
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
them and say, show
Show
me
it.
what you like. Is there anything that is upsetting? Because I hear that sometimes they just feed you stuff and then you talk to them about how they can control their content, curate their content. If you don't want to follow that account, just unfollow. Do you know you can click hide ad if you see a beauty ad and you don't want to be exposed to that? You click the three dots, hide ad. So you can start to control the content a little bit. I mean, we're not going to be able to do it 100%. But even if we can't do it 100%, we're teaching our kids this critical thinking
Sure.
of what we're exposing ourselves to and that we can choose what we like and what makes us feel good. And we can choose to avoid what doesn't make us feel
Yeah.
good.
And so now I have boys, right? Are boys part of like where do we have to caution boys in terms of what's coming to them through social media, right? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question.
maybe some would be looking at beauty and things like that, but let's just say
Yeah.
sports, right? If they started out looking at sports, is it taking them somewhere
Yeah. So,
potentially harmful?
yeah, and teen girls are doing worse than boys, but boys are not doing better. Their rates of depression are surging as well. So the concern that I have with teen boys is a couple things. Number one, pornography.
Okay.
And so by the time they're young adults, they're having trouble in relationships because of constant early exposure to pornography. So we want to talk to them about that and the importance of limiting that and how important it is to have real life experiences when they're older. I have a friend who is a pediatrician, and she tells me that a lot of her boys come back, her male patients come back from college with this issue. And one of the things she tells them is to stop watching pornography online. Okay, so
So,
that's
but what
one.
okay, can I just
Mhm.
ask you, like, not I'm being
Yeah.
naive, right? But what is stunting the development because of the early access to pornography? Is it because they don't feel that they need a in-person relationship with someone because they have access to pornography, or
It's
what is it?
it's more that the way pornography stimulates the body and the mind, it's a quick
Okay.
fix and it's a formula, right? And it's unrealistic. It's not what happens
Mm.
in a relationship with a partner.
Okay.
It usually takes longer. It takes time. There should be different stages of intimacy. And so with pornography, it's just,
Right
right
there.
to the end
Okay.
result, right? And really, there's a huge range of, appropriate to completely bizarre and uncomfortable, pornography. And so they're just getting exposed to so many things. And so, I'm not an expert in this
Okay.
area. I just know enough to say we want to
Right.
caution, our boys and have these conversations
Okay.
with them. But the other thing that's really happening for teen boys is either video games or they're in fantasy clubs and they're getting contacted by predators
Mm.
and they're getting sextorted. So someone will pretend that they're a teen girl and then develop a relationship with a boy. And I had a mother tell me about this last month. So her teenage son thought he was developing a relationship with a teen girl. It was not. It was a male sex predator who was in another state and and got this teen boy to send him nude
Pictures.
pictures and then said, if you don't send me money, I'll send it all over the
Right.
internet. Now, thankfully, this teen boy went to his
Mm.
parents and it's a happy ending. They worked through it. They talked to therapists. He's highly functioning, happy kid at college now. But there are many other
Yeah.
stories of
Yes.
that leading to depression and suicide. And so we just have to remind them about this stranger
Yeah.
danger, that there are online predators and we want them to be really smart and just hang out with their friends. And that's one of the things to caution.
Right. And if, they find themselves in a situation, right, how important it is for that trust to be there from parent to child, that the child can come to the parent, that, there will be no shaming, right, that they will work together to figure it out, right? That's the part that probably isn't working in all families, right? That there's that open trust I'm assuming there's a lot of younger boy, right, that would just be so fearful to go to their parents to say like, oops, I did this and now I don't know how to undo it. So I guess what's the
Exactly.
advice? Proactively, we talk to our children about these things that could potentially happen, right? Like with
Exactly.
us, it
So,
was more, let's have the agreement, if you're going to drive and go to a party, right? Sign off. You could call call whenever, right? So that there's just so many conversations, right? There are
yeah, no, it's
so
true.
many things. It feels like it's hard. It's getting hard. Like parenting isn't easy to begin with, but it just feels like it's
Yeah,
getting more and more challenging. But I think
parenting
that's
is hard. Parenting is hard.
why we're all here, right? Is to try to share
Exactly.
this information so all parents can hear, right? Like this is really what's
And we can
going
help each
on,
other.
right? And how to help each other.
Absolutely. And my advice to parents is just like you have these important conversations with your kids about substances, about drunk driving, about sex, risky behaviors, you have to now include technology and social media in that, basket of conversations. When I give my kid access to social media or they already have it, but I haven't had the conversation, I need to have this conversation with them about safety, from predators, and about mental health and about quality of life.
Yeah.
Exactly like you're
Yeah.
saying. So yeah, it's another one of those big
Right.
conversations we have to have.
All right. So, I mean, how would someone, so if there's a parent out there that just doesn't know how to have the conversation, like, and they wanted to reach out to you, how could they reach you?
Well, if anyone wants to reach out to me, you can find me a couple ways. One is Wise Up Parenting. So you could find me on YouTube and Instagram. Good use of social media is,
Well,
Yeah, we're
we're
promoting.
educating parents.
we'll put that
We're
link up for our
educating.
parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Wise Up Parenting. And then my therapy center is wellbeingtherapycenter.com. And you can access me that way to book an event or to get in touch about therapy services.
Okay, great.
Great. We'll have all those links on our site for you. Lauren, thank you so much. This has been such an informative and important conversation. We really appreciate you being with us today.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. It was great to
Thank you.
be here.
And thanks to your sister for making the connection. I so appreciate
Yeah.
it. All righty. Thank
Have a great
you.
day,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed with Carrie and Jessica. Together, we can raise the next generation of independent, capable, and compassionate young adults.
We encourage you to send us an email with questions and feedback to info@parentcoachesunleashed.com. Please remember, you are not alone on this parenting journey.